Walking the tightrope unseen, no applause. World spinning differently, breaking vague laws, masked by culture. But the truth still bless. Unravel the silence, no need to impress. Unmask it all, let the voices ring. This is our truth, let the realness sting. No labels here, just stories to tell. Living in colors where thoughts rebel. Unmask it all, let the voices ring. This is our truth, let the realness sting. No labels here, just stories to tell. Living in colors where thoughts rebel. Overt stimulation's a daily grind, but brilliant sparks where the world goes blind. Sensory waves crash like a vivid tide. A different approach, but never divide. They call it disorder, I call it a realm. We navigate waters they can overwhelm. From eye contact to the words we don't say, it's a movement of voices paving our way. Unmask it all, let the voices ring. This is our truth, let the realness sting. No labels here, just stories to tell. Living in colors where thoughts rebel. Unmask it all, let the voices ring. This is our truth, let the realness sting. No labels here, just stories to tell. Living in colors where thoughts rebel. We ain't broken, just cracked in design. Bridges to build, give the wheel a new sign. Empathy leads, let understanding glide. Shatter the stigma, let wisdom reside. Unmask it all, let the voices ring. This is our truth, let the realness sting. No labels here, just stories to tell. Living in colors where thoughts rebel. Unmask it all, let the voices ring. This is our truth, let the realness sting. No labels here, just stories to tell. Living in colors where thoughts rebel.
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough on the draw today. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where in the world you are. How are you doing today, Rob? Oh, my Lord. All right, Rob, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I mean, I was worried about that, but I clicked on the, I was switching back and forth between microphones because that's the problem we had last time.
I didn't know if it was you or if it was me, because sometimes it's me.
I don't know. Well, at least we figured it out.
We got it fixed.
I'm going to take a picture of this to remember the microphone's got to be on this one for next week. So we've been doing really good. We're making progress on the ideas we discussed Monday. So Josh is making progress at saying on the things you suggested, and I'm excited about that.
So next Friday, we're going to have a special, not this Friday coming up, but the Friday after, in 1 week. Carrie will be on and another gentleman, and they will be talking about a supplement called Cell Defender. Well, I've talked to you about and promoted to you.
Yeah, that's great.
So she'll be on, and they will be talking about what it is, what it does.
Yep.
But also we'll be backing it with the scientific research, independent scientific research, and some success stories, including my own personally and also my son's, along with others who have taken it and had success.
Yeah, and if there's time, then I can ask questions, and I can.
We will make time. We will extend it on as long as we need to.
Yeah, and that'll be good because I can. I'll be able to talk about Josh and ask my questions, so that'll be great.
Yepers. So today I thought we would talk about identity, labels. and how it's more than just a diagnosis. So, welcome to Autistically Speaking. I'm Mary Stanley, who is a mother of 2 autistic children, who is autistic herself, late diagnosed, and a neurodiverse autistic and trauma specialist.
Right.
And I've got my co-host, Rob, who is...
Yeah, I'm a life coach for special needs parents and siblings. And I have a 24-year-old child that needs lots of help.
Yepers.
Yep.
So tonight we're going to dive into a subject that is not only powerful, but also deeply personal for so many families: autism and identity.
Right.
And before we go anywhere else, I want to start with the question almost every parent asks me: should I tell my child they're autistic? And if so, when and how? My children are young. My daughter's 11 and my son is 9. They do not know their label yet. They know their brains are wired differently.
Yeah.
And that's how they explain it. Or she will tell you, I'm having a busy brain moment. My brain is just running.
Right.
Or I'll have a quiet voice day, which means she talks really quiet and mom needs to find her hearing aids to put them in because I can't hear anything she says.
Yeah. Interesting.
And let's be honest about it. That decision can be overwhelming. Some parents worry, if I tell them too young, will they feel broken? Others worry, if I wait too long, will they feel betrayed when they finally find out?
Yeah.
There is no one size fits all answers. But here's what we know. When children grow up knowing there's a reason their brain works differently, that the reason is autism, it gives them the framework to understand themselves. It helps them say, this isn't me being wrong. This is just me being autistic, which can be empowering. But here's the caution: the way we frame labels. If autism is induced as a tragedy or a burden, a flaw, then the label becomes a cage. If introduces difference and identity and a source of community, and a label as a key, the key is self-acceptance and pride. But it can't be just words. It has to be how you treat them as well.
Right.
And so, we use terms like your brain is wired differently because you have special gifts. And when you get older, we'll explain it more. We're just giving them what they can understand. So it's how you explain things. So here's some pros and cons about labels. So the pros are: the label gives language. Kids often sense they're different long before anyone tells them. The word autism gives them a way to name and understand that difference. A label connects them to a community. With a label, they can find other autistic kids and adults and realize they're not alone. And the label opens up doors to support in schools, therapy, services. The word autism unlocks resources. Now, you can unlock those doors without them knowing their label. The schools can know their label. You just talk to the school ahead of time, letting them know that this is how we define it, and they don't know their label yet. So that part doesn't mean they have to know their label. Okay. The cons of knowing their label. A label can be used against them. So when teachers, family members, or peers say you're autistic, so you can't, that label becomes that ceiling. That label also can carry a stigma. So if parents whisper it with shame, children will learn to carry it with shame. Which is how, when you explain it to them, you have to say it in a positive way. And a label can overshadow individuality. And this is the big part of this. Sometimes people reduce the whole child to that label. So instead of seeing them as a full human being. And the big part of that starts at home and how you see them. So the question isn't whether to tell them or not. The question is, how do you use that label and how you're using it to empower or to limit? So when is the right age? Research and lived experience both tell us it's almost always to tell a child earlier than later. Even young children can understand simple language. Your brain is wired differently. and that's called autism. It just means they experience the world in a different way, and that's okay. If you wait until they're older, they may have already absorbed shame from the world, and they feel angry and betrayed that you didn't trust them with the truth. So you start early, you can start simple, and you can grow that conversation as they grow. And it depends too on how you define it. So like I tell them now that their brain is wired differently, and we will tell them the label of it when they get older, because, and for right now, we don't do it for one reason only. They Google things. And right now, when you Google autism, you hear all the crap that RFK says. And then you hear about all the ABA therapies. You hear all about all these therapies, and a lot of these therapies around here are called programming children or training children and stuff like that. So it doesn't sound positive.
Right.
And so I don't want them to have that stigma. They know
Right.
it's a label. They know what it is. They know how to deal with it. They just don't know the name of the label.
Right.
We've never heard from them that they're different, that they've got special gifts, is how we call it.
Right.
So it just depends on how you explain to them. It's ignoring it's where you got the problem. And moments of honesty build trust. Labels, when used with love, can free your child, but labels used with fear can chain them. The choice is in your hands, and it has to be what works for you.
I'm going to run out and get something out of the truck, Mary. I'll be back.
Not a problem. All right. I lost my outline. Give me a minute. All right. So let's start out with the basics. All right. What does it mean to say autistic identity? Identity is the story we carry about who we are. The answer to that quiet question inside, who am I? So for autistic people, that story is shaped every day by the words of parents, teachers, doctors, peers, and too often that story is written in a list of deficits. Thank you. Can you grab me the garbage can too, please? It's over by the gray shelf from when we move stuff around. Thank you. But identity can also be a power of strength. Your brain works differently. You see things others miss, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. You think in ways the world needs. So for many autistic adults, discovering autistic community is like, and they say, "Oh, it's not just me. I'm not broken. I belong." That's an identity. The difference between a deficit model and identity model isn't just a philosophy. It's the difference between shame and pride, between collapse and resilience. It's about empowering. It's not looking at all the things we can't do, like we can't make eye contact, or we can't think this way or we can't do things this way. It's, looking at things like that's part of who I am. This is why I do the things I do, but I'm so much more than just that label. And that's the part that we really need to focus on too, is that label, yes, defines a small part of who we are. It doesn't define who we are completely. Now, how parents can hinder the identity? All right, parents, this part may be hard to hear. And I've been guilty of some of these at times too. But that's also where healing begins. Even with best intentions, parents can unknowingly send messages that crush their child's sense of identity. And let's talk about some of the common ways. Masking expectations. Masking is when an autistic person hides their natural traits to look normal. Parents, sometimes you encourage that without realizing it. Stop flapping your hands. People will stare. You just even subtle cues when they do things that you get embarrassed by. They see that. They know that. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Don't talk about that. That's weird. And when we're talking about things like that, especially eye contact, what the child hears is what I'm naturally doing is wrong. I'm wrong. Imagine being told every day to stuff yourself into a costume that doesn't fit. That's the experience of masking. But it's also telling a child that they're not good enough. That who they are is not good enough. Another harmful part of the identity is the fix-it mentality. Many therapies, many interventions are built around fixing. Make your child less autistic. Make them speak faster. Make them adapt to the world better. And parents sometimes say we just want them to be normal. My goal for my kids, and what I always tell them, is someday you're moving out of my house. You're going to school, you're going to work, you're doing something, you're going away. Come and visit, but don't stay. When we use these fix-it models, it's to make them less autistic. What you're saying is we want them to be normal. But what the child hears is that they're broken. When your whole childhood is therapy session after therapy session focused on skills you lack, it's impossible not to internalize that you're fundamentally defective. And think of this. You're not given an opportunity to play. Sorry, I had to adjust my chair. I hit the wrong button and I ended up sinking to the floor. From the time that you're diagnosed, 3, 2, your whole life is spent in therapy. Majority of kids with autism. You are taught when to walk, when to sit, how to walk, how to look, how to speak. You're given a treat if you do it right. You're taught how to eat. You're taught what to eat. You're told that it doesn't matter what it tastes like, it doesn't matter what you think of it. You need to eat it and you need to eat it at the table with a silverware on a plate and do it correctly. That is your whole childhood. And you wonder why these kids can't play, have no interest in anything, don't know how to do anything. They are never given an opportunity to be a child. I personally don't understand how this is not classified as child abuse. And it's all done to fix them instead of letting them develop at their own pace, helping them, guiding them. And I'm not blaming parents because you don't know better, because this is what you're told you have to do to help your children. Especially parents with kids that are older. That was the status norm. But now science has caught us up, has taught us that that's not the right way to go. We need to speak up louder. We need to make our voices heard. And we need to adapt and change the way we deal with these kids. Because they're kids, first and foremost, not little robots, not little puppies that need to be trained. So when your childhood is therapy session after therapy session focused on skills you lack, it's impossible. It's impossible not to internalize that you're a fundamentally defective. So some of the other things is like harmful labels. Terms like high functioning, low functioning. They might sound descriptive, but they're identity killers. They tell one child you're not struggling enough to deserve support because you're high functioning.
That's a good point.
And they tell the other child you're too broken and to ever be independent. So I have kids. I had kids on both on both levels. And when you go to like an autism center, they will tell you, well, because your daughter can talk and walk and chew gum at the same time, even though she has meltdowns every time you turn around, cries about everything, she functions too much, we can't help you. And then you have the kid who bangs his head on the wall. Oh, he needs all the help in the world. 40 hours. And the thing is that neither of these build pride. They build shame. Either you're broken or you're not broken enough. And what also happens, especially with the high functioning, is all about, expectations. You forget that they are still autistic. And you get frustrated with them more because they screw up. Because you expect them to do things. And when they have bad days, like we all do, you get frustrated with them because this meltdown after meltdown. When they just need a little bit of patience. The overprotection, overexposure. Some parents wrap their kids in bubble wrap, never letting them try, risk, or fail. Others shove them into situations that they aren't ready for and saying they have to toughen up. This was my husband. We got into plenty of arguments over this one.
Yeah.
My argument was he's a kid. Let it happen naturally. It's like, it reminds me of like an old John Wayne movie. You're teaching your kid to swim and you throw them in the lake, hoping they float, not sink. When I hear toughen up, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
It's working with them at their level, at their pace. Otherwise, you're sending the message, I don't trust you to be who you are.
Right.
Here's a big one. Parents grieving the child they thought they'd have. When children sense that, and trust me, they do, that their parents are mourning their existence, they internalize that grief and they feel like a disappointment. They're never going to make their expectations. Your child should never feel that, like they are less loved because they're autistic. It isn't about blaming you, it's about awareness. Because once you see that message you may be sending, you can start rewriting it. It's simple. So here's an example of some scenarios. Okay. A little boy is flapping his hands, bouncing with joy because the light and the colors are overwhelming. His mother snaps, "Stop it, you're embarrassing us." The boy's face falls. He learns, "My joy is shameful." Now imagine instead she knelt down and said, "I love how excited you are. Let's take a quiet break in the car and then come back." The boy learns that my feelings matter. My mom gets me. Another one, a girl with a passion for history corrects her teacher with a fact that she knows by heart. Teacher says, "Don't be a know-it-all." It happens a lot. The girl learns to hide her intelligence. Now imagine what would happen if the teacher said, "Wow, thank you for sharing your knowledge. You just taught us something new." The girl learns that her passion has a value.
Yeah.
A non-speaking teen uses his device to say, "I need quiet." The parent sighs, "Stop being difficult, just deal with it." The teen learns, my voice doesn't matter. If the parent would have said instead, "Thank you for telling me that what you need. Let's find a quiet spot." The teen learns communication is powerful. I'm heard. These are not small moments. They're turning points in a child's identity. Every reaction writes a line in a book. The book of who they believe they are. So let's now flip it over from negative to positive. How do we build positive identity? How do we shift from hindering to helping? And Josh is agreeing with me on this one.
Yeah.
Shift from fixing to supporting. Instead of asking, how can I make my child less autistic? Ask, how do I help my child thrive?
Right.
Celebrate their passions. Your child loves trains, insects, anime. Lean in. These aren't obsessions to cure. They are lifelines. They build confidence, friendships, and even careers. Look at a good example look at people like Thomas Edison. He would have been considered on the spectrum. He liked tinkering with stuff. It took him 1,000 times to make the light bulb. If you wouldn't have been allowed to tinker with stuff, you would never have electricity today or lights today.
Right.
Look at people like Emily Dickinson, who was an isolist. She lived in solitude because that's what she liked. She was considered on the spectrum. We wouldn't have had the great novels of work that she did. Use affirming language. Talk about it with pride. Don't whisper it. It's not a dirty word. connect them with communities. Let them see autistic teens or adults who are thriving. Representation shows them a future. And model acceptance daily. Let them STEM. Let them wear headphones. Let them carry the stupid blanket everywhere they go.
Right.
That's my son. We have a rule. You can take it, you have to carry it. And all you hear me say is pick it up so I don't trip over it.
Right.
Representation shows them a future. But in a way that works best for them. Let them feel safe and secure. Sometimes parents have asked me, don't I need to prepare them for the real world? Rob, you've said that a lot.
Right.
The best preparation is pride. When they're strong and they feel well with themselves, that's the first step, because then they will be able to deal with the environment around them.
Right.
A child who knows they are loved exactly as they are will walk into a world with resilience. A child who only learns to hide will walk into the world already wounded, and they're prey. Now, how do we talk about autism at home? My kids hear it all the time. Language build identity. So here's some swaps so you can make it sound right now. Instead of saying you need to act normal, tell them your brain works differently. That's a good thing. Let's figure out what helps you feel comfortable. Instead of saying, can't you just handle this like other kids? Tell them it's too much right now. Let's make a plan together. Instead of hiding the words, say it with confidence. Treat it like you'd being left-handed or bilingual. Being left-handed nowadays. Back then, left-handed was a bad thing too. Teach siblings to celebrate, not tease. Teach grandparents, and family and people around him to see autism as a difference, not a disaster. Because grandparents and other relatives that aren't around it all the time will see them as broken. When the whole family uses affirming language, identity grows strong, and they're accepted. Now let's talk about parents' own healing, their journey.
Amen. Yeah.
Talk about you. You can't pour your pride into your child if your own cup is full of fear. Maybe you were told autism was a tragedy. Maybe you were carrying grief for the dream child you imagined. Maybe you're afraid that the world would say, that's real. Every day we go through that. But here's the thing, your child feels it. If you see autism as a burden, your child will see themselves as a burden. If you grieve who they are, they will grieve themselves. So I invite you to reflect and ask yourself, do I love my child for who they are? Or who? That's the first thing you need to figure out. Yourself. Now, am I pushing them toward my dream? And this is every parent question. Or am I supporting theirs? This isn't about guilt. It's about freedom. When you release the need to change your child, you get to truly love them for who they are and see where the joy begins. And that's the big part, is you got to see them for the individual they are, not for that label. So we're going to add to that toolkit you got. So helping parents shift. How do we shift from looking at them like they're broken to looking at them and see, how do we see them for who they are? First and foremost is just listening to them. And it may be their actions, it may be their words, things that they do, the smiles they give you, the look. Pay attention to who they are. Be more affirming, be more positive. Celebrate passions with them, things that they like that you like. There we go. Support regulation. Help them regulate, help co-regulate with them, and encourage authentic communication. Are you doing okay, Rob?
Yeah, yep. I
Got
hear
an
you
allergy?
taking it. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I've got some ideas, but I want you to lay out this good lesson plan, and we'll talk at the end.
Okay. I'm almost done. And
Mm-hmm.
doing less of correcting every difference. Enjoy the fact that they swept the floor. Enjoy the fact they got dressed by themselves. Yes, it may not match. It may be inside out. It may be backwards. Enjoy the fact they're wearing clothes.
Amen.
They're talking about that today on my networking group out of New Zealand that I do. And I've known these guys forever. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have a disclaimer in my Zoom anymore. Ignore the naked kid walking by. It's a bad sensory day. I actually have my
Right.
name on there. Enjoy those kind of things.
Yeah.
Now, stop comparing to normal. Nobody is normal. There's no such thing as normal.
Right.
Silencing stems. If they're stemming, let's take a calm down break. Teach them when they're stemming to regulate, because that's what's going to silence it. That's what's going to change it. Because they're doing it because they don't know how to express how they're going to explode with feeling. So when they're starting to stem, have them reset. Most importantly, stop forcing eye contact. I had a talk with a friend of mine today, Gabby, and she was telling me about how she struggles with conversation and how a lot of times she don't retain what they're saying. And I go, you're retaining it. It's just you've been taught your whole life you need to look at them. And when you look at them and watch them, you are focusing so much on looking at them that it's shutting off your conscious brain. Your conscious brain is so focused on paying attention to looking at them that everything's going into your subconscious mind. Because you can talk about, we'll have a conversation and you all of a sudden, oh God, that triggered. You remembered something. And that's what happens is they struggle with the eye control. It's not a big deal. Another thing is getting them to respond faster. No, I remember growing up that way. My mom snapped her fingers. Well, I'm waiting. Come on, let's go. What's your answer? Yes or no? Brains take a little longer to process. And stop treating autism like a flaw. Practice reflective listening. I hear you. Let's solve this together. Practice co-regulation. Slow down, sit with them. Breathe with them. They'll want you to. And the thing is that it's going to take a little while for them to trust you to come and co-regulate with you. And connect with mentors and coaches, so you see your child that their future can be full of pride. Every small shift rewrites their identity story. And that's what the most important part is it's about allowing them to be a kid, allowing them to be a person beyond their label, and just enjoying them. We forget that identity is not accidental. It's built word by word, nature and nurture, reaction by reaction. So when you tell your child they're autistic, they're not just giving them a label, you're giving them a story about who they are. And this is where you want to write that story full of pride, not full of shame. Your child doesn't need to be less autistic. They need to be more themselves. They need to be more independent. And that's the other thing, is about, allowing them to do things, getting them out of that bubble. As a parent, your sacred job as a parent is to help them believe in being themselves is enough. And think back to your childhood. You may not have been a straight A student, and how you struggled because you didn't meet your parents' expectations. It's the same thing for them. And how you thought back, well, when I have kids, I'll be different. Are you different? Think about that and what you wanted to do differently with your child. Or are you trying to outlive your dreams that you didn't make through your children, which is a very common thing. That's all I got today, Rob.
Yeah. Well, the big piece that to add to this is, as a parent, when you hear Mary's teaching, and you've got incoming from all directions, and it's a good problem to have, that we've got all these people that want to help or mean well. And so the best way to to look at this stuff is to start with your own self and your own foundation of your own mental health. And the best uh, example of that, the best way to look at that, is divide yourself into the three ego states. And another way to say that is, what is your uh, where do you stand a lot? And the three ego states are the child, the adult, and the parent. So how that helps me as the parent, that I've got the drill sergeant parent, the pastoral parent that wants to bless, and then the child wants to have fun and doesn't want to eat their broccoli. So when you sit down and you work on any activity, then whatever you do, think, okay, where am I at? And can I stand in the adult? The adult is just doing their job. They don't have a lot of emotions of mad, sad, glad, fear, or the two types of shame. That's what the adult and the child do. So if you stand in your adult, then you can say, okay, when my autistic child flaps and it embarrasses me, I want to jump into the drill sergeant overbearing parent saying, stop that. And you say, I want you to do all this therapy. It doesn't matter about fun. You've got to grow up so you can be okay when we're dead. That's the number one thing I'm worried about. So you've got to do this, this, and this. It doesn't matter about your fun. It doesn't matter if it tastes good. So what you're doing is you're projecting your fear. onto your child, and you're standing from the place of the drill sergeant, the adult, the parent who has this fear. The fear is you're going to be abused, so I've got to make sure you're all ready to handle life when we're gone. So, but if you say, okay, I'm going to look at this issue from the adult. I mean, from the adult, not the parent, the adult who is calm, who looks at the big picture, who is unemotional, and say, okay, I'm going to look at this, and then you can think, well, how does the child feel about this? Is this right? Do I have the right stuff going here? So the adult can figure that out. When you're in your drill sergeant, you're just torpedoes away. This is the way it's got to be, or I'm going to bless you because I want it. That gets into pastoral stuff, but you're still being the parent drill sergeant. And then when you're in the child, you want to have fun and you don't want to do all this homework. You go to the therapist. Well, can you fix him so we can go back to having fun? So you've got to say, okay, I'm an adult now. I've got a child with special needs. I've got to be calm. I got to stand in my adult. And then you can, and so go through, if you were triggered by by any of these things that Mary has said, any of these teachings, go back and say, I'm going to re-listen to this from the adult. Instead of being, I'm angry, Mary can't tell me to do this, I've got to correct her. Well, you put into the adult, this is too much work. That's crazy. I don't want to do that. Well, then you're in your child. So that's the best tool that you can start off with. And then if you think about that and you research, you look up the 3 ego states, there's a lot of stuff written on it. Then when you can sit down with your therapist, then you'll have a good foundation. And you sit down with your coach and you say, I want to do this, and I'm worried that I'm in my parent state. So help me with this. And coaches and therapists love it because you've already done a whole bunch of work and they can jump in and help you. And a lot of us therapists and coaches, we worry. It just makes us sad when we can't get through to our clients, and we want them to succeed, and we worry about the children. And you can, and now and as I just said that, I'm in the adult. I'm in the parent. I'm preaching to you all to stand into your adult. So you just catch yourself. So I think that's a great way to sort out. And you can also, the last teaching on this is look at the other person. Because when the teacher who corrected the child, don't be a show off. What that teacher did to the young child who wanted to add something or make a correction, the teacher was, I'm in charge of this classroom. And so you can't upset my authority, and I'm going to give you a lesson that you're being a show off. Well, that came from the parent. Yes, you are the teacher. You are sitting in front of that. But wait a minute. Now, am I teaching from a place of gold or shadow? From shadow, you're correcting and have to have control over the classroom. But from gold, you were teaching. The child raised her hand very excitedly and wanted to correct. You're going to absorb that. You're going to bless that child from a place of gold as the teacher and as the parent, and your adult can help you do that. So just look at when somebody comes, I got this latest, greatest idea. Well, are they manipulating you? Are they trying to sell you something? Where are they coming from? And then you can use how Mary evaluates all this stuff. She's very clear. She's open-minded, and she does all her research, and then she makes her decision about what she's going to recommend. So that's the tools. You got to have peace and joy in your heart. You and your spouse have to be on the same page. Like Mary and her husband saying tough love, and Mary saying let them be kids. And so there's balance. There's helicopter parents that aren't helping their kids, and then there's drill sergeant parents that aren't helping their kids. That's why you have to stand and sit, stand and rest in your adult.
Yeah. You know, a lot of times when you get triggered about something, usually means you're guilty of it. You're feeling guilty. And you get
Right.
defensive about it.
That's right. And so look at that. Just look at that. Take a breath and say, okay, what am I feeling? Is this mad, sad, glad, fear, shame? And where is that coming from? And who in my past instilled that? So if you take a breath, then you're not going to say these things that are going to hurt your child's feelings or are going to remember, like, you're embarrassing me. Stop doing that. They flap and they stim because it's their way of regulating themselves. Don't be embarrassed by that. If anybody uh, says, well, I don't understand why your child's doing them, take on the energy of Mary and pounce and say he's autistic. That's the way he regulates. So you're going to from a place of gold, you're going to consciously step into the parent and explain to that person. And you're setting a boundary against their bad behavior and explaining at the same time. So it's all about balance.
And that's it. It's balancing it out, and it's, helping them, understanding them, working with them. Not about what makes, and, the part that frustrates me a little bit more is that a lot of times we look at autism as a get out of free jail card in a way.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I did with Josh was my parents weren't disciplinarians. And I said, I'm going to have more discipline. But I fell into this trap of
There we go.
not being a disciplinarian. So,
For some
so I,
reason, my connection keeps dropping.
okay.
But we look at it like, okay, the way the goals are designed, the way the services are designed for parents, for these kids, it's based on what you could create your own Stepford kid, basically. You look at all the problems they have and how you can fix it. It's how society is set up for these kids. And so it's not completely the parents' fault. It's how, as a society, we need to change. It's the government, how we need to change. It's the therapies that we use and how we word everything. What goals do you want for your kid? What are their problems? How do we, and they put a game plan to fix it. Where do you want them to be at? It's not looking, none of the questions right now, other than some new organizations that have adjusted their stuff, really look at the kids' best interests and where they're at. It's all about where they are at as an individual and where the parents want them to be. And so when you live in this world of this is where we want them to be like when they grow up, it's like a get out of free jail card. And it's just a lack of education. There aren't a lot of classes out there. There's not a lot of things out there for parents to know how to deal with these situations. And it doesn't help that our own government tells us that our kids are broken because they are autistic. They feed the narrative as much as everybody else. And that's what needs to change. But that's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's what's good if you hang with Mary and I mean, I have the deal that I'm Pollyannish and think, well, they mean well, and Mary is
Cynical?
very critical, very is cynical, and so it's a good balance because and that's what's you soak it all up and you learn to be ready and understand where people are coming from. And what's great about having a cynical and a Pollyannish host uh, for this podcast, and to have, and with you and your spouse, you're going to have spouses are different, and that's why they come together and they have strengths, and they can work with each other, and then you're going to have a balanced approach, and you can work these things. And then you can evaluate. And what that does is having knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and knowing your personality and the personality of your spouse. And have you ever watched a couple, whether it's a fictional characters that are on the screen or it's somebody in real life? I mean, when the couples uh, know what's going on and they work well together, they anticipate the other person's uh, if they're doing a presentation and they think, okay, well, this is going to, and you just watch how they flow and how they interact and how they work together. They've got a connection, and that's what you strive for when it comes to raising your children, being on the same page. Because my wife and I've got lots of compliments because we back each other up. And you got mom and dad there that are on the same page and back each other up. Well, the people are floored. So, so go with that and strive to have that, and then you can evaluate. You know, like mom and dad together can evaluate. Okay, I want to try this. I'm excited about this, and then you can work on it together, and then you can evaluate: are these people? Is this a good idea or a bad idea? And things, and you try different things for their age and for where they're at and their needs, and you could evaluate: is this going to help or not?
That is true. And that's it. It's all about how do we help our kids be the best they can be at the same time, working together as a unit.
Right.
And that's where it gets hard because, you don't always agree. That's where you got to learn to agree to disagree.
Right. And that's why I want people to go to your therapist and learn how to do that, and go individually to work on your stuff from the past, and then go as a couple and work together, and then have your coaches and have friends. Just think about the three people. You are a combination of the five people you hang with, and that includes your social media. So just have happy people that are lifting you up, and and then you can also, like, there are with your if you have a team, mom and dad need to have a team and have somebody to vent to, because Mary coaches me on stuff, and then I think, okay, how am I going to talk to my wife about it? And so you have male and female friends and colleagues that you can trust, and you soak up that energy. And it's also, you got to have your people that'll kick your butt, and then your people that'll hold your tears, and both of them, and you need both types. And so, yeah, I mean, you can be on the same page, but also have somebody that you can go to, that you can talk to, that's objective, that doesn't remember all the mistakes you've made in the past, or not holding any resentments, or hasn't even branded you for a certain thing. So you have to work that into your therapy and with your coaches, and have a good team. Have lots of people that you can talk to. You have your mom friends and your dad friends on the Facebook, social media. On the Facebook, there's lots of great autism groups, and there's groups for every disability. And so you soak up that good support, and then you have your team of different people. Like you have, I'm balancing out. I've got a team. I've got some people that think Josh is not going to get any better, and then people that think the sky's the limit. Well, there are good things I can learn from both teams, and so just take a balanced approach.
Now, with the one thing I want to add with the teams is everyone that works with that child or that individual, they all need to be on the same page.
Right. Amen.
You need to be doing the same things, believe the same things, work the same way. Saying the same things. So that way when you're doing it, it all makes sense.
Yeah. And then also, I think for you ADHD excited parents like me, that I've got that you got an OT and you got a speech, and they might have lots of different ideas, but if your OT occupational more of if your speech therapist brings up something that's more behavioral or more occupational, then absorb that, and then think about that, and take it back to your ABA therapist, your behavioralist. And so, because different different people, everybody's got different ideas, and some people share a lot. And so you have to, if you're the torpedoes the way brain like mine is, then you bounce from different idea to different idea. And so just take a breath and absorb what everybody's saying, and and think about it. And if you have to put them in their boxes, I mean, it's politely in your brain. Okay, I got speech says this, my OT person says this, my ABA person says this. And when they're having a fight over what's the best thing, just sit back and listen. Get your popcorn out, soak it all up. That's a good problem to have. And then you may have somebody that's not helping or has a personality or an agenda, so they've got to be booted from the team, or their influence needs to be less.
You know, it's a good problem to have if everybody working with them has the child's interests and goals are based on the child, not on their
Right.
own experience.
Yeah, it's golden shadow. You just get a feel for them. If they're always bringing up one program or one idea, then all the time, then that's their agenda, and they're projecting that agenda onto your child instead of saying, okay, we've I've got this idea, we've done this therapy. Now I'm going to look at, okay, how is this working? Is it working? Is it not working? Well, do we need to pivot? Do we need to do this? Do we need to do that? It's when you work on a car, you've got all sorts of different things. Don't just throw parts at it. Just let's diagnose. Let's think, how are all these systems working together in a car? And it's the same thing with your child. You've got all sorts of stuff rolling around and all sorts of experts. So just be looking out for their agenda. And Mary is very cynical, and I'm very Pollyannish, and so just have a good balance.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Be on guard, and just go to your therapist, figure out where you're at, where your spouse is at, and work it. And if you're a single mom or a single dad, then keep looking for support. And if you're divorced and you've got different people doing different things, and you've got different in-laws, you have to get everybody on the page. If grandma and grandpa are saying stuff that's not working, you have to say, look, you all got to knock it off. And you can also talk to your child, like every time they come home from school. Well, how was school today? Tell me all about it. Tell me about all your classes, and watch your child. And if they're if something's rolling around in their head, well, let's talk about it. And that's why you adjust for each when the that we can't prevent the crazy teacher from saying that. What we can do is okay, this happened. This is going to happen in life, and you know we can figure. There's a lot of things we can do. Do you want is this a pattern? So do we try to get the teacher fired? Do we say, oh, grow up? Well, if there's a balance in between there, what do we do? And so keep on watching. You're not going to catch all this stuff. So if you're on top of it, and you got your child is number one, and we're going to be monitoring this stuff every single day at school and what they're doing and as they're developing. And it's just like your child, you got them potty trained, and then they learned to walk, and they did this and he did that, and they figured this, and you're always changing and adjusting, and you're staying on top of all this stuff. Well, that's just like having a special needs child. It's just different stuff, and it's the same stuff.
That is true. So we are out of time for today.
Mm-hmm.
So join us Friday for another topic. I'm not quite sure what yet.
Yep. And join us Wednesday for another topic that we're not sure yet, and then come back on Friday when we're going to have the cell defender lady and her guest, and lots of exciting conversations.
Yes.
So we're going to meet you back here on Friday and Wednesday at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, and then download the podcast later on and listen at your own pace, and then you can listen for a little bit, pause it, think about this. Well, let me think what Rob and Mary said. I'm triggered. Let me think. Okay, I'm coming back. Okay. continue on, Rob and Mary, and we'll continue on because we're there in the digitals.
That's right. We are setting up the fan club for the show.
Right.
And to it. I'm still recovering from 9/11 week, so.
Yeah.
So have a good day. Have a good night. We'll see you back here next Wednesday and Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central. I need to go to bed.
Bye for now. Time for bed.
Bye.
Later. Exiting.